welcome in Sam Cosentino, who I describe to people as Mel Kiper, but better. We love your insight and analysis. First question has to be, I think I just heard a bell. That's awesome. I have to ask you about the impact of the start date of the NHL season and what that means for the World Junior rosters. It has to be significant.
Yeah, it's a huge topic. So let's start first with Kirby Dach of the Chicago Blackhawks last year. He was loaned to Team Canada, but based on the premise that he could be let go at any point should the Chicago Blackhawks start play. Then we look at a guy like Alexis Lafreniere. He has yet to report to Canada's camp. He has a December 6th deadline to get there. So he'd be 1 week with the team prior to them going into the bubble, and then he would have to have 3 negative COVID test results. Well, the New York Rangers are saying, hey, this is a first overall pick. We want this guy to play. We want him to experience all of what the camp has to offer, but we still don't know when the start date is. Then you have Kaapo Kakko. Here's another guy who, with the Rangers last year, another opportunity to potentially represent his country, and of course, Jack Hughes. How about that? Another guy who, with New Jersey, played last season. But will they give him the opportunity to get back with his peer group, that great 2001 American-born age group, or are they going to say, hang on, he's a prized possession, let's just wait for the start of the National Hockey League season? So that great uncertainty, Tony, that's surrounding this right now really will impact a lot of these players, and it'll be fascinating to see if they all get released. Oh, man, it's going to be awesome for the tournament.
And we look forward to the tournament every single year. You can watch all of it right here on NHL Network. How about Team USA? Every year they are the central focus for this network. What do you think of Team USA's chances this year?
Well, I love their goaltending, and that's really a key position. They've got tons of experience back there with Wolf and Knight, so that's a great starting point. You look at their back end, guys like York back there, but where I'm really most impressed is what they have up front. I mean, you're talking about guys up front that can really get the job done. Yeah, of course, it's going to start in your own end with guys like Knight and Wolf getting it done in the back end, but then transitioning that puck to the forward group. You talked about Trevor Zegras, absolutely brilliant last year. You got Caulfield, you got Turcotte, Hughes if he's released. And again, we harken back to that U.S. under-18 team from a couple of years ago, and you have to think that most of that group will be put back together for this event. That's got to be really exciting for the prospects of Team USA moving forward. But again, a big piece to that is Hughes, whom we just talked about. Will the New Jersey Devils let him go and participate back with his own age group? I think it'd be great for his confidence.
You've mentioned age groups several times. For those that aren't as familiar with the World Juniors, this is such a significant opportunity. I've compared it to the NCAA tournament, that it is a small body of work that is given a massive amount of influence because it's best on best. The whole world's watching. It's you against your age group. Why, following up on the points I made, is World Juniors a great barometer for a player's level of interest from NHL teams?
Yeah, so if you start with prospects that have already been drafted by NHL teams, it's a really good gauge as to where they are in terms of their development. A lot of them aren't too far off from going to play in the National Hockey League. But let's talk about the late 2002 born players or the 2003s, which means they'd be eligible for the 2021 NHL draft. You put them into this scenario, kind of like Alexander Holtz and Lucas Raymond last year for Sweden, where they're technically playing as underage players in their 18 and sometimes 17-year-old seasons. Well, now you get an opportunity as a scout to see what this player can do against people that are a little bit older, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster. And if they excel in this event, technically as an underage, that really speaks to the high prospects of what this player will do moving forward. Another guy I talk favorably about is Anton Lundell. The centerman, plays for Finland, recently drafted by Carolina, I believe it was. So when you look at where he was a couple of years ago, this would be his third World Juniors. He assisted on the game-winning goal, Kaapo Kakko, a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, banged up a little bit last year, but he'll get an opportunity to come back and play a key piece with Rasmus Kupari centering Finland's lineup down the middle of the ice. So these guys who excel at a younger age, who can carry that forward into their 19-year-old seasons, you expect them to be dominant once they get to be 19.
And how significant is the World Juniors? Well, in the history of Canada, the proud history, no country has won anything like the medal tally they have. It was a relative unknown in Jordan Eberle, who was voted the greatest World Junior player ever in the history of Canada. His heroics in that tournament, absolutely epic. We'll talk about him forever. Let's move on to Russia. What do you expect from that country in this year's tournament.
Well, they're always good. But one thing I think is really key here is the fact that Igor Larionov is now the head coach. He was consulting last year to Valerie Bragin. He's since moved on. But when it comes to Igor Larionov, skill, speed, doesn't mind playing younger players, where Valerie Bragin always seemingly had issues with that. So it starts with their goaltender, Yaroslav Askarov. This guy's an absolute stud. He's played in 7 games in the KHL. He's only allowed more than 1 goal on 1 occasion, Tony.
Wow.
The guy's unbelievable. Big right-catching goaltender. He's been brilliant playing against men. And then you look at Vasily Podkolzin, who is the first-round pick, 10th overall a couple of years ago to the Vancouver Canucks. Here's a guy who can play a heavy style of game, has been a little bit slow in terms of producing points, and so people are wondering, is this guy the real deal or not? There's a lot of really good things to his game. Yeah, he drives the net hard. He can play with a physical brand. He can shoot the puck. He's a good playmaker. But I think he's a guy now who's sort of been out of that first-round spotlight for a little bit that is now ready to excel in this tournament. His point production, I think, at about 6 points through 20-some-odd games in the KHL. Not great, but probably not getting a ton of opportunity, especially on the power play. But I really like this player. I have going back to his draft year. This is the time for Podkolzin to show you that he's a legit first-round pick. I think he's going to have a breakout tournament. So you have to like basically what they have in their starting points in that core group when you talk about their goaltender, Askarov, and, of course, this guy, Podkolzin.
Jim Benning sleeps like a baby at night. His ability to evaluate, unreal. Now, I always trust your opinion, too. Moving on to Team Canada. That country, so impressive at last year's tournament. So much hype surrounding Lafreniere, and he ate America's lunch. 1-3, 6-4 final score. Incredible. How does that country follow up on what they did last year? Because the MVP of the tournament, 2 points a night, ends up going first overall. What a player.
Yeah, unbelievable. So at this point, he's not even with Canada. So let's look at the 46 players that are, Tony. 26 of them are first-round picks.
Oh, my God.
Try and consume that for just a moment. I mean, that's simply unbelievable. So you look, they're really good in the back end. For me, it starts there with Bowen Byram. This guy's a stud. And how about the Colorado Avalanche? A couple of times where they thought, we should be getting that first pick. They end up dropping to 4. They get a guy by the name of, Cale Makar?
Yes.
Yeah, not bad. And how about this guy, Bowen Byram? I've watched the first 2 intra-squad games here for Team Canada. He has been absolutely dominant. This guy is on fire. He owns the ice when he's out there. It's his. He's playing like a rover, but he gets back defensively. This guy is an absolute stud. He's not long for the NHL. He's been Canada's best player in camp so far. But it doesn't stop there, Tony. No, it doesn't. We got to go to the Chicago Blackhawks. We got to talk a little bit about Kirby Dach. Here's a guy who, when the season went on pause last year, really took a different approach to retraining for the restart. He was brilliant when he came back. Second-line center, playing in the first power play unit. No problem at all whatsoever. So Stan Bowman has said, all right, you're going to go play with the World Juniors, get back playing with your age group. He wasn't there last year. He's having a blast doing it right now. He's got a lot of old buddies he's playing with. And I think he's a guy that can take that major step forward. When he's engaged, forget it. He, too, can protect the puck. He's got unbelievable skill. Check out the highlights of the kick pass he made a couple of days ago at Canada's camp. He's got physical presence. He can play on the power play. He's starting to come out of his shell in terms of his leadership abilities. So I really love what those 2 guys are going to bring to the table as anchors here for Team Canada.
You're a very kind man. You look like you have the facial growth of a relief pitcher. I shouldn't question you. But did you say that they have 26 first-rounders in camp?
In camp. So there's going to be a lot of guys getting cut. And that doesn't include Shane Wright, who will probably be the first overall pick in 2 years from now in the 2022 draft.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Let me ask you about Team Germany, because I was watching the NHL this past year, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He plays for the Edmonton Oilers. Leon Draisaitl made me believe in German hockey forever. That guy, what a player, what a year. How about his country? What do you think they'll be like come tournament time?
Yeah, well, they have to be really excited with the prospects of what just happened in the draft. When you look at Reichel and Tim Stützle going in the first round, Peterka going a little bit later. But these 3 guys are going to be the anchors of this group. And let's not forget about Mo Seider,
yes,
the defenseman taken 6th overall 2 years ago by the Detroit Red Wings. This guy is brilliant. So don't sleep on Germany, whatever you do, because if they get going and that first line can move and groove a little bit and get some freedom and start to put up some points, they got a guy like Seider in the back end who can really help get it done. I love love what they're doing in this country in terms of their development. They're saying, yeah, we're going to let a couple of young guys on our men's teams in the Elite League, and we're going to give them minutes, and we're going to allow them to play, allow them to develop at home, play almost an NCAA type schedule where you play a couple of games during the week, but you practice and you work out off ice. It's worked brilliantly for these two gentlemen right here. These two guys are going to be absolute studs in the National Hockey League. I don't know if they can quite get to Draisaitl's level, but they're going to be really effective impact players for their respective clubs once they come over and start playing in the National Hockey League.
Sam, you're at Draisaitl's level, and that's why we love you. Thanks so much for joining us.